Well, good evening, everyone. I am so excited for tonight and our session. It's always a great time
Good
when I can bring
evening.
together um, some friends to talk about to have equity conversations, for us to dig deep into what's happening now. So our webinar today is teaching in a pandemic. I know most of you are teaching in a pandemic that are watching. Some of you might be hybrid, some of you might be in person like I am. Some of you may have just went back. Some of you have went back in the fall. Some of you are doing a variety of different things. But what we wanted to talk about today is to do a little bit of reflection. So I have some excellent panelists because we're going to talk about teaching in a pandemic, hard lessons, and the aha moments that have come up. I am your moderator, Patricia Brown, and I am one of the co chairs of the Digital Equity PLN for ISTE. And so I want to first allow my panelists to introduce themselves. And let's just do like a quick check in. I always like to start off with a check in just to see how everyone's doing. So just say who you are, maybe what you do, where you're from, and also just how you're doing. Let's start with Michael.
Thank you. I'm Michael Mills. I'm at the University of Central Arkansas in the College of Education. And like many, I'm making it, counting down days.
Yes, we are making it. I have exactly 3 more Mondays, so I'm excited about that. All right, let's check in with Carrie.
Hi, everyone. I'm Carrie Hennessy Wilson. I am an EdTech innovation coach in Asbury Park, New Jersey. And my check-in, I guess today I'm doing good. I'm doing great. I don't have 3 more Mondays. I have till the end of June. So right now I'm all right. We'll see what tomorrow brings.
I like that. Let's see what tomorrow brings. Good to be optimistic. Valerie.
I am Valerie Lewis. I am an assistant principal in the Metro Atlanta area, and I believe I'm also like you, Patricia, with 3 more Mondays to go. So right before Memorial Day, we'll be out, but I am currently drowning. So I know that I will stay afloat, but this too shall pass, and that's the attitude I'm sticking with it.
It's definitely the best attitude to have. And finally, Sarah.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Thomas, and I'm a regional tech coordinator in the DC area and also the founder of EduMatch. And I guess for my check-in, I am blessed and tired. I have a few hundred more Mondays. We're 12 months, so a few hundred more Mondays. But it's good. I'm happy to do what I do, and I am kind of exhausted, but it's a good kind of tired. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think all of us can attest to just that tiredness. I didn't realize how tired I was until we had our spring break and I just was able to breathe and it just felt so good. And I didn't realize how much I needed it. So kudos to all of the educators that are in the trenches right now. This has been so many words we could use to describe this year. So I'm not going to go into that, but just know that we appreciate our educators. I'm going to say that as a parent, talking about my colleagues and all of you all, we definitely deserve this break that we're going to get very soon. All right, so let's just jump into it. So there has been a lot of conversation about learning gaps and just things that kids are missing out on due to the pandemic. And we can start from like last March for some students who have not seen a classroom since last March, to we have some kids that have returned back to in-person learning in the recent weeks. So just thinking about that, what are some things that you feel like students have missed out most during the pandemic? And anybody can just jump in. If you unmute, then that just lets me know that you want to jump in.
So I think that I could speak from, as a parent and as an educator, I think mostly what I see is they're missing out on interaction, like making connections, like in person. And it seems like some of them have really, it's starting to weigh on them emotionally, and they're acting out in different ways. I think that is probably one of the most, but beyond them missing out the everyday structure and organization of a normal school day. I think that is really what is causing them. Those who are having the most problems are to me social emotional well-being.
I agree with Carrie. I think that, maybe pre-pandemic, we thought, you know, teenagers, particularly I'm at the secondary level, want to be left alone, and want to be by themselves. But what we're realizing in this pandemic is that they too recognize that they crave human interaction, being around their friends, being able to do things that are normal, whether that's going to, you know, a football game, or, being able to go hang out at the gas station, or, whatever, with their friends. And so that, I think, is probably what they have missed out on the most. I think they maybe value their teachers a little bit more, or understand the value of education perhaps a little bit more. But I would say the number one answer is definitely that social interaction.
I think,
Definitely. Go ahead,
Carrie,
Michael.
oh, I'm sorry, Patricia. Oh, I was just going to say that was like on the top of my list for things that students have missed out on. And I think that goes along too with, opportunities for true engagement with, their teachers on the content, the socialization. And, we found out that, people do need each other a lot, you know.
Good point. Just piggybacking off of what, Valerie said, you think about secondary kids, wanting to be left alone. I experienced that sometimes with my children, but I did see a difference in when it was time to go back to school. They were like all ready. The virtual sounded great, at the beginning, and then they realized, wait a minute, every day. So now they're kind of more, they're more engaged with being around their peers. I just want to encourage our attendees to make sure you utilize the chat. We'd love to hear from you. If one of our panelists says something that resonates with you, let us know in the chat. Speaking of the chat, Mark has a comment or question that maybe we can tackle. He wanted to know, what are some strategies teachers are using to get their students interacting and making connections? And I'm assuming, because you're speaking based off of virtual possibly, and maybe not in person. So maybe some strategies that teachers are using to have the kids interact. I did see, Carrie, you posted in, and you have to make sure you change it to everyone, because I think the panelists just see it. So, and Carrie said that she's been able to interact with the digital tools. I don't know if you want to kind of elaborate a little bit more about some of the digital tools that you guys have used.
Yes. So I've switched from being in elementary for 20 years of my teaching career, to on the secondary level this year, which, has been a learning curve for me. But what I've noticed is that it's similar to how elementary teachers, engagement is engagement. So what I promoted, we've been using Pear Deck in the high school, and it really kind of has been a game changer in a lot of the classrooms, especially for those students who would normally not, in a normal setting, speak anyway. But I think it allows students to be able to engage in an anonymous way. And it also kind of gives an accountability feature, which, teachers are really looking to, make sure that everyone's doing what they're supposed to, but also checking in to see whether or not they're getting the learning outcome.
Yes, I love Pear Deck. We actually use Nearpod, which is basically the same thing. And one of the ways that our teachers have been able to use it is to have that engagement piece when they're teaching a lesson, of being able to have the kids interact. And there's so many different tools and options, even games and things embedded in the program, that makes it so much easier to get the engagement for kids. Also thinking about using the polls and the chats and the Q&As, and then just taking a break of letting the kids go into breakout rooms and just talk, just have conversations. So anybody else have any other strategies that they use before we go on to our next question? Or
Well, Patricia, when you mentioned the breakout rooms, that is like a tried and true, because they want to talk to each other more than they want to talk to us. And one thing that we would do is give them a creation or a problem prompt where they got into their breakout rooms. And one, here first, you're going to talk to each other, tell each other how you're doing, kind of like what we did here. But also here, we want you to create this together, and we'll come back and share.
I've even found that co-teachers are using things, a lot of these great tools that you're talking about, but even tools like Padlet, and them modeling maybe some of the things that they want students to do, and then kind of creating already a space with students' names. So they're almost like, oh man, I gotta put an answer in there, call me out. And so I think the students, those that have been shy and maybe typically would not engage, but it gives them a way, if they don't want to use their voice, to kind of be able to give an answer. And then there's some kids that are very vocal and verbal, but having co-teachers sometimes helps to man those students that are in the chat, and then those students that are also in person. In our district, we're doing a concurrent model. So the teachers are teaching the kids on the screen and the ones that are sitting right there in their classroom at the same time. So having that co-teacher, I think, has been a big benefit, helping kids engage and interact. And then in-person kids are interacting with the kids that are digitally, having that experience as well.
wow, that's tough, doing the concurrent model of in-person and virtual at the same time. That's definitely challenging. And one thought that I had, and this isn't even related to a digital tool at all, but I know of one of my teachers, she utilized that opportunity to do a real world design thinking challenge. And so one of the challenges that she was having is when the kids were on the iPads and she wanted them to show their work, they had a hard time being able to take a picture or hold, and we're talking about second graders, take a picture or hold up their iPad in a way. And so the design challenge was for them to take materials in their house and build some type of stand or something that they could easily showcase their work. And so the kids came up with all kind of things that they were able to use in their home. And it was just that problem solving right there in the moment, but also creating something that's useful for what they need at the time. So I think there's so many ways that we have been creative, and our kids are being creative and how we're addressing our needs. So
like you said, Patricia, you got to break it up sometimes, and it's not always academic. You have to tap into where the kids are interested, their passion. Like you said, just take a moment, let them doodle and color. Even at the high school level, they want recess. You know, we take those opportunities from them, and sometimes just giving them that outlet is engagement in itself. Sometimes they just want to talk to you, the adult. And so I think we can break down those barriers and just let kids be kids, whether they are 5 years old or whether they are 16, 18 years old. We will see that engagement happen organically.
yeah, I think that's key, that organic. Because I think sometimes when we force our kids to be social, they like, no, I don't want to do that. But when you let it happen organically, a lot of times those connections are made that we didn't even think were possible. Yeah, and Carrie, you put TikToks. Yeah, I spent so much time on TikTok. It's sad. I don't make TikToks, but I just love watching. So, and there's a lot of educational things on TikTok. You learn a lot. You learn a lot on TikTok. Okay, let's move on to our next question. So, I know at the beginning of the pandemic, specifically, there were a lot of companies, organizations throwing resources at schools, some free, some with a little fee attached to it. But I'm wondering, in your opinion, what were some of the resources that you felt were the most needed during this pandemic? And it doesn't have to be necessarily connected to digital tools, but just in general, what resources you think were most beneficial for our students?
Say that it would actually be the human capital that was most beneficial. Like, in the district where I work a few years back, I'm dating myself for anyone who might be in the same district, but we had the slogan, "Parents are our partners." And I feel like we totally saw that come to fruition this go round, when we were dealing with the 100% remote learning. Like, we could not have succeeded had it not been for our parents, and had it not been for a lot of the initiatives put forth in the district to help make it more accessible to parents, like a parent academy, troubleshooting site, a hotline, things like that. Getting materials translated in multiple languages. But the parents were really like the biggest resource, as well as educators to other educators, the connections. I know on Facebook sometimes, you would see a group pop up all of a sudden, right? And then next thing you know, it has 60,000 people in it. And we saw this happen over and over. So with connecting, there was a big boom back around 2013 to 2016, but I would say that the boom was even bigger in 2020.
Oh, I definitely agree, Sarah. And you brought up a great point about that parent piece and that partnership. So many years, a lot of districts try to do things in isolation and leave parents out of the conversation. And they realize, especially during this pandemic, that parents are truly our partners. Like, we have to engage with parents, we have to make them a part of this educational process. Because if you weren't able to make a connection with them, with the kids coming to school, imagine how difficult it was when you have a parent sitting next to their child while you're teaching, and having that whole, like, everybody's watching you. And I noticed, like, towards the beginning, at the end of the summer, going into the fall, it was a lot of parents against teachers versus parents, and just that back and forth. And I love to hear you say, that partnership is so important. Anybody else want to add anything to that?
I've seen some parents, I'll just say, with my special needs kids in our self-contained classrooms, those that have opted to remain digital and not come into the building to do in-person learning. I mean, sometimes I'm starting to see these parents are on the teachers' rosters because they're having more fun with learning, and God forbid, like you're saying, if there's a language barrier, you've got the parent on the Zoom, they're like, I can't hear you, wait up, I'm doing it. And I mean, it's hilarious, but they are engaged, they are involved. And I'm like, look, little Johnny's gonna be in class because mama's coming to class too. And so I think you're right. The parents are partners, but now I think maybe moving forward and coming out of the pandemic, that's something that we'll take with us. But another resource I would say is food. Our district has made sure that parents can come to the school, even if they are not in person, to pick up breakfast, pick up lunch, have school buses on the weeks where maybe it was spring break, deploy out into those neighborhoods, into certain spots. So when they knew the parents couldn't come in, they can get them there. That wasn't just for students that were in our building. That was for anyone in the neighborhood that had infant through 18. So they didn't have to be a registered student. And so we found as parents, I mean, there was a need for food because parents were losing jobs. They were unemployed. And so instead of waiting for the food pantry, they could feed their kids breakfast and lunch every day. And I guess a lot of that was, thank goodness the CARES Act, put that in place for this school year. So I thought that was a valuable resource, and probably moving forward, it need to be a continued resource.
You may sorry, you brought up a great point, Valerie, of just meeting not just academic needs, but the whole child, the whole family. And it's just it's so critical. A lot of families ended up getting the food that was needed, and that was directly related to all the things that were going, and everybody was just experiencing. So I want to go on to talk a little bit more about just some of our challenges. When you're thinking about your challenges, and I know a lot of you have different roles. So thinking about as far as if you were in person or virtual, what was like one of the most rewarding experiences that you've seen so far, or maybe what was the most challenging? You could share either one or both.
I guess I guess I don't know if it's like rewarding. It's like rewarding and challenging in the same sense. I think it is. I've never worked so hard ever in my life. Like it was like tech coach season for real. And I was working like from when we first went into having to quarantine from March to June. I was working like 13, 14 hours. And it was just like talking teachers through how to use Google Classroom and how it worked and what it was, and having, from my house, like talking to students and talking to parents through, how do you upload? How do I join a classroom? Why isn't it working? Like why you need to have your school email. You can't use your personal email. So I think where it was like super challenging and I was exhausted, I think the reward of it was at the end of the last school year and the beginning of the school year. You saw all the hard work and all the pieces of like, because it was like all hands on deck. So everyone had their piece of what they needed to do. So I think that was the reward at the end of it, because like Sarah kind of like touched about how like, there was a boom of like ed tech and this and stuff. Like I saw people move so quickly across that like hemisphere of using digital tools. Like even like if we're thinking about the SAMR from the substitution, like they went all the way to in a few months. So I think that was, I'm getting the goosebumps even thinking about it. So I think that was like the most rewarding part of it to me. But it was a struggle, and I'm not gonna, it was the most challenging, because you have to meet people where they are, and there's all different personalities. And I think when people are stressed out and frustrated, they deal with that in different ways. So having to really like think about how to approach people and move them forward to be successful. So I think it's like it goes with, there's challenges and rewards.
I'm glad you brought that up about like that quick move from people being very non techy to very techy in a very short amount of time because they were forced to it. And that also, and you also brought up the point about everybody, all hands on deck. And I think that goes along with Matt's question about just the school culture and people being kinder and more compassionate. I guess you would probably agree, yes, that's happened because, everybody wanted to help and everybody wanted to have the best experience for students, even when it was stressful. And, you weren't getting the sleep that you wanted. I tweeted out on a couple occasions at Facebook, check on your ed tech friends. We are not okay, because we were not okay from March until probably now. But it has been definitely something that I can say there has been change in the way we interact with one another. Anybody else feeling the same thing?
I can say that what we've seen both at the K-12 schools and here in our College of Education, what was challenging but rewarding was the conversation started moving as they started moving more toward equity. That kind of went along with our issues with race. Those started coming to the forefront, and people started to see those two as, I can't say that word. They're closely linked, very much linked. And I think the challenge and the rewarding piece is it kind of put people in a position where we started having conversations that people have always put on the back burner and said, we don't want to talk about that. That makes us uncomfortable. And I think people start realizing, nope, this is the time we need to start having those conversations, and we need to continue these conversations.
Definitely continue the conversations. And some people were just having these conversations for the first time, you know, when all of this hit. And so I'm happy to hear, you know, as much as education is so full of buzzwords and cliches and like trends, I hope that some of the things that we have gained during this pandemic will stick. Which kind of brings me to my next questions. I'm going to try to pull both of these questions together. When we're talking about our gains, because I know Carrie mentioned, like, you know, teachers really jumping into their tech use, and we're seeing teachers for the first time integrating technology in a way that they're having the aha moments as well as their students are. So we're seeing that gain. So how can we hold on to that gain, those gains, and make sure that we're not seeing that backslide or going back to like the old ways as we're transitioning back to our hybrid or in-person classes and moving away from virtual? So thinking about like the gains that we've had, whether it be academic, social, community, whatever you want to name it, but also thinking about how we cannot, I like the term backslide, reminds me of church, be backsliders. So we don't want to be backsliders. We want to make sure that we are pushing forward and really meeting the needs of our children and where they are. Not even our children, because we've been educating our parents as well during this time. So what are you guys' thoughts around that?
Yes, I'll jump in on this one. And I feel like there's, you know, in this circumstance, in this really sad circumstance, there's been a lot of positive to take from it as well, including, you know, that connection aspect. You know, as we were discussing, educators connecting together, connecting with parents, connecting with the community, and that connection, it's definitely the way that our profession needs to go and needs to continue. We can advocate together in order to hold on to what we know is right, what we know has been effective for our students in this time, and to push back against some of the backsliding, because you already start seeing it, you already start hearing it. You know, people start talking about standardized tests, this standardized test, that. And what I feel like we're not just isolated individuals so much anymore, you know, like now that we have that connection, as educators, as, you know, partners with parents, then our voices can be louder together, and we can push back and say what we think is right for our students.
Mark said in the chat where mentioned about hearing districts aspiring to return back to the status quo because of exhaustion, anxiety. And so we know to get to any good thing, it's going to always be hard work. Nothing that really is truly rewarding came easy. And so we have to be mindful that the good work is going to be hard work. And as Carrie mentioned, there's kind of like a reward and challenge all at the same time, never working so harder, but maybe yielding the best result. And so if we're in our mindset of going backwards or saying, oh, I just want to return to what's normal, then we've got it wrong. And I think that's going to fall down on building leadership at that point, to make sure that we have systems and processes in place, continue to get our teachers with the professional development that they need, continue to say, hey, you got to focus on the good things that came out of this and what can we retain? What did it do that was really good for kids? Now, I'm not saying every kid needs to be in a brick and mortar, because I think that's something we've also learned. For some kids, coming out of the brick and mortar and going into a virtual was actually a plus for them and their family. And we have to be able to acknowledge that there's not just one way to skin a cat. And we have to be able to accommodate and individualize learning opportunities for kids. And that is a big gain from this. And as teachers, you're right, it's a lot of front loading. But this whole year, guess what? We've been creating a lesson plan and a recipe for the future. So just kind of put it in your mind, guys. This has been an instructional planning period for the future. There is no going back. There is no going back. So I think if we can just continue to work with our building leaders, keep that mindset, continue visionaries, but if we're being student-centered, then we will always maintain the good work. We got to put ourselves to the side a little bit. And if we maintain that focus, I think we'll continue to do the right work.
I was waiting on the Valerieism because it was coming. She said you are creating a lesson plan for the future. I was waiting because she always has one or two in there when we do our webinars. I always enjoy, hearing our Valerieisms that happen. But you're absolutely right. And just taking what you said about, what you do that doesn't always come easy. When you want gains, you want a positive outcome, that is not easy. Well, educating kids is never easy work. Nothing we do is ever easy. But I think in this time, we're taking an extra effort because of what's happening and what's going on. And it is draining. We have to be honest. We're tired. We're tired. Parents are tired. Kids are tired. A lot of them are checked out. We got 3 more Mondays, so they're checked out. They see that final day, and that's all they see now. But I think it's so important, all the things that you all said tonight, to really encourage our educators that are listening and watching to know that we're all in this together. We are all fighting the same fight. And I love what Sarah brought in about community and those connections, and how, I was talking to an organization recently, and they were saying the uptick of engagement that they've never seen before on their platform. And I said, that's directly related to COVID. We are looking for resources. We are looking for support. We're looking for ways to connect with one another, because we all understand that we cannot do it by ourselves. So I just think it's super important. So as we wrap up, I wanted to give you all an opportunity for any final words. Also, my attendees, if you have any questions, now's your time to put it in the chat. To ask our panelists, our dynamic panelists, any final questions you have. But the chat has been great. I'm watching and looking with some of the comments and things and the feedback that the panelists have put in for some of the questions. So if you have any additional questions, please, this is your opportunity to drop them in the chat now so we can address them. But I wanted to see if anybody had any final thoughts, like as far as, what's on their mind or what's on their heart that they want to share out to the audience. And then we'll wrap it up.
I think I'd like to hear maybe even Michael talk about with the new teachers. Think about, they have been thrown into this pandemic classroom. And I don't know if the new teacher program has prepared them for it, but you're already checking on your veteran and seasoned teachers, and then you've got these newbies that have jumped into this. So I wonder what feedback new teacher programs have now learned to prepare teachers going into classroom of the future.
We actually, thank you for that, Valerie, because we've talked about that a lot and really thought about it a lot. And I got to tell you, for us, we told our interns 2 things. One, you got stories to tell. 10 years from now, you're going to listen to some young teacher complaining. You're going to say, I went through it. I got baptized by fire, right? But also we said, we expect you to be leaders. We expect you not to go in there and try to figure out what you're supposed to be doing and what your role is. Your role is to go in there and take charge. Your role is to go in there and give this person some relief, because a lot of these teachers have been teaching a long time without the benefit of this close this really important instruction in using technology, right? So you're going to go in there and you're really close to learning this, and you're going to go teach them. And we have been thrilled at how well our new teachers have, gone out there and they've taken charge, and really some of their mentor teachers out there, they're like, thank goodness y'all sent me this teacher, because I don't know how I would have done it all by myself. So, but the key is, and I think Valerie, you made a great point, is as we start to transform education to the kids who are going to say virtual is now for me and my family, and brick and mortar over here, we need to make sure that in our college that we prepare students for, you might get a job at either one and you need to be prepared, but the human element's the same, but you just need to know the skills that'll keep you successful. Thank you for that.
Great points. I would not want to be a brand new teacher. This being my very first year teaching, I would have probably ran. But kudos to the first year teachers. Kudos to first year teachers. This is a year that nobody else has experienced. So you have that. If you can survive this, you can survive anything. Absolutely. So if there's no other final thoughts, and I'm looking in the chat and I don't see any other questions, I just want to thank you all for joining us tonight to have this candid conversation about, what's going on in our schools and how we can effectively continue to educate our children and be supportive of each other and our parents. I want to remind you all that we will be doing other webinars. Check us out on Twitter. Our handle is, I think it's DIG Equity PLN. Somebody can check me on that. I'm going off the top of my head. You might want to post it in chat, Valerie, if you know. But please check us out. Continue to have the conversation, engage with us, join our PLN. We would love to have you all be a part of our PLN. And we look forward to chatting with you again soon. We got another webinar coming up very soon. And then we'll also have sessions at ISTE conference, ISTE Live, which is coming up in June. So stay tuned. We got some good stuff coming up. Thank you again to our panelists, and everyone have a wonderful evening and a wonderful rest of the week and school year. Thank you guys. Bye-bye.